Yeah, it looks better. Okay, cool. Hey, Todd. Hey, Marcus.
Hey, Ov.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Oh, yeah, we'll give folks a couple more minutes to join. Um, okay, cool. So, Ilya, did you join the call?
Yep. Hey,
Oh,
folks.
cool. Hey. I thought I saw someone from the, like, a room from the SF office joining, but yeah, I wasn't sure. Um, okay, so I think everyone are here, or almost everyone, so we can probably get started. Um, okay. Can anyone scribe? Let's start with that awkward moment. Anyone? Oh, okay. Cool.
I'll do it.
Okay, cool. So that's the first item on the admin list. The next is for the next call. We originally said that we're gonna do it next week because we didn't want the lag to spread over time. Does this still work for people? Next Thursday, have a design call. Cool.
So that's 14th at 11 BST?
Yes.
11 p.m. Okay. Great.
Okay, cool. So next up, let's talk about user timing L3. Nicholas, are you on the call?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. Um, so do you want to discuss that, or should I? Like, what's the...
So I guess from the previous call, the decision was to poll developers, right? And publish L3 drafts. I don't know if that has happened already or not. So
I think that I saw an L3 publishing passing by. So let me verify that. Otherwise, regarding the non-scientific pool of user preference, we're currently at 70% more or less for the 70% in favor of the measure versus 30 which are in favor of measure with options. So given that the group was also mostly in favor of measure, I think we can safely go with that.
okay, sounds good to me.
Cool.
So, sorry, which issue is this?
So the issue, let me dig it up.
48.
So yeah, user timing 48. Um, so, and other than that, in terms of user timing, I believe that this is the only thing that is currently, like, it was still in debate. And other than that, we are more or less ready to ship as part of Chromium, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, just wanted to give the group a heads up regarding that we are planning to ship shortly.
I was actually just looking at this the other day because Paul Roy, the head of the MSN performance team, was asking me about this. So if I understand correctly, because you guys actually shipped an initial user timing 3 implementation almost a year ago. Is that, well, started it in Canary?
I believe it was behind a flag. I believe it still is.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't shipped.
Okay, so it's, if you turn the flag on, it will flip to that mode. But you're once we've got all these spec issues fully, then you're going to go ahead and remove the flag in Canary and move toward shipping. That's how to understand this.
So yeah, the plan is to just roll basically remove the flag, so it will ship in Canary first and so on. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. So I was actually reviewing the user timing issues, and it seems like there's still quite a bit of noise in terms of the issue count. Even though I agree with what you all have said about, it seems that most of the conclusions are solid.
What do you mean noise? I see 10 open issues, and
yeah, 10 open issues. That's a lot of open issues, I would say, for a spec that we think is locked.
So I'm not like, there's a difference between some, like, a spec shipping in like an implementation shipping and a spec shipping to CR.
Just to clarify, we're not proposing publishing a candidate recommendation. It's currently on draft, so of course we do plan to take a look over those issues and triage them.
Yeah, I guess the question to the group is, do folks on the group think that any of those issues is blocking for shipping, in a sense that the API shape will significantly change and will have compat issues trying to align with the spec if the spec changes?
I'm actually asking the opposite question. Editor Nicholas Pena, you have reviewed these 10 issues. And as the owner of the specification and the active editor, are you confident that when this proposal ships, it's not going to cause the inability to solve these issues in the future? Is that fair as a question?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I do think that none of them are blocking, or like what you said, but let me go over them to ensure that some of them I think are kind of obsolete. For example, there's one that's level 3 proposal. I can close that, things like that. So let me go over them, and I'll send an email to the group after I've done that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And notice I'm not trying to cause work. I just want us to be methodical in our approach. That's all. And as if what you say is true, then awesome. Like, it sounds like great progress.
Yeah, and just to be clear, issue count is not necessarily the good, like, the right metric here, because we have specs that have been shipping for years, and unfortunately have many issues open on them. So this is just to going over the issues to make sure that nothing there will require API changes that will cause compatibility issues is a perfectly sensible thing to do, and yes, is something that typically happens as part of the shipping process of like the intent process in Blink.
It seems like we must at least resolve the like market measure argument issue. That will definitely be a compat issue if we don't.
Which one?
settle. Hmm.
Which one?
The issue we were just talking about.
Oh, the measure versus measure with options.
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah,
we
well, I
settled
think
on
the
measure.
decision-
Go ahead.
Yeah, the decision is that we're going with just measure. So I will comment that and close the bug.
Right. So I think we need to at least close that. Close
Yeah,
the issue.
like I said, I hadn't gone over them, so after I do that, I'll send an email to the group.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So moving on, let's talk about resource timing. Speaking of specs that have shipping implementations and a long list of issues, resource timing level 2, we finally managed to trim down the number of open issues to 2, which one is just ship the thing, and the other is that we need to switch the IANA registration of timing allow origin from from experimental to permanent once this spec is shipped. So these are 2 administrative issues. The main problem that we have is with WPTs. So if you look at resource timing issue 71, I have a comment there near the end where there's a list of tests that are only passing in one implementation. The list was longer. Some of it was fixed thanks to Charlie. So thank you for various buffer full related issues, as well as I'm not sure regarding the supported resource type any. I'm not sure if that's but it's also work that's been done recently, but we're still left with a list of 7 different tests that are not passing in one implementation. So that are only passing in one implementation. Sorry. And so it seems like at least some of them are for resource connection reuse. It seems like one small it seems to be the same issue for all 3 tests. But for others, I'm wondering if folks from Safari and Mozilla can take a look and try to tackle some of those issues and get us to have at least 2 passing 2 passing implementations for each one of the tests.
Well, and the goal is either to have a bug which states intent to fix, or pushback on, hey, this is wrong, we disagree with the specification. One of those 2 things. It would be even better if we had a fix, but a bug stated intent to fix would be enough for us to send this specification on.
So from the Mozilla side, we have recently started looking at a pretty new hire who has been looking at those things, or at least at one of them, and we don't really have bugs for all of them yet, and sometimes you need to do some investigation before you can say whether we agree with a test or not. So even if we have the test, we don't really know if we already have the intention to fix it or if there's a problem with the test. I hope we can file the rest of the issues soon. But we have at least started with this process now.
Okay, and I have to say that there's also flakiness related bug in Firefox that we are hitting constantly when when touching those tests. We often hit flakiness on the bots, on the WPT bots with Firefox Nightly. That seemed to be a result of an implementation issue where some timestamps that are supposed to be identical are racially identical, but sometimes are not.
Okay. Well, we need to look into that.
Yeah, I have a filed
Thanks.
issue on that. And
Yeah.
and Ryosuke, from your end, will it be possible for you to, at least in the short term, for you or someone else on your team, to file issues on these non-passing tests and, either...
I can totally file an issue, but as far as I know, like nobody is looking into it. So I mean, realistically speaking, even if I want to file a bug, nobody's gonna look into it, right? It's not. If you're talking about a couple month time frame, unfortunately, I don't think we'll have anybody look into these failures.
Yeah, from the perspective of Apple, is it fair to say, Ryosuke, these aren't breaking websites, so they just don't make a high enough bar to commit resources to urgently? Is that fair?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's really if it turns out these failures are causing compatibility issues, right? It will prioritize, if it's simply WPT test failures, we tend not to prioritize that.
Yeah, from my perspective, I completely understand that. I think we should count ourselves fortunate that Marcus and Firefox has an engineer committed here. And that the minimal ask is really just about getting that investigation to a point where Firefox agrees with the specification and has a public bug, which can unblock shipping the specification.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, to make things a bit more complex, while digging through that, I found 4 web page tests that I have written but haven't landed yet. So I'm not sure what the status of them are. I think at least in some browsers they are not passing. I plan to land them very shortly, or at least one of them is Marcus is waiting on review from the Mozilla side. So the add nested context resource timing tests is a test I added after TPAC following a request from Boris. So if this is something you could prioritize the review, that would be great.
I can ask him once more.
Okay. And otherwise, they are all, I think all of them are also requests from Anif and Castrin, basically, that ended up as tests. So, if you could prioritize the review, or I could just, land them, and then we'll see if, assuming that, let's hope that they're passing in all implementations, or at least in 2 of them, and in that case it won't be a problem. But if they aren't, it would be something to add to the priority list.
Yeah, thanks for writing those tests in response to the asks from the Mozilla side. I will try to find or get people to prioritize also reviewing them. But I can't promise anything as usual.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Oh, but Can't you look at the results before you land them from the continuous integration?
I can, and I probably should. Yeah, yeah. It's just that it's tests that I've written over the last few months that I kind of forgot about, and they were as part of like the PRs open on the WPT repo, but I haven't looked at them recently, so I need to revive them, potentially rebase them, and try to land them. And yeah, and then we'll see if they are passing or not. Or I can test them ahead of time to see if they're passing or not. Okay. Anything else on resource timing? Okay. So in that case, I think we can talk a bit about navigation timing and the various issues there. I would love to also reach some closure regarding navigation timing in the near future so that we can close both navigation timing L2, resource timing L2, and then work on converging both. One issue which is fairly simple, we already discussed, but so issue 95. On navigation timing, it's the current wording is that if any of the redirects is passing, unload event should be exposed. The correct wording should be that if all redirects are passing timing allow origin, only then should unload event be exposed. We agreed on that, and now I also, like we agreed on that in a previous call, I wrote a test as well as a PR, PR number 103. So if folks could take a look on that, like both the PR and it has tests to go along with it, I would appreciate reviews on that in order to close that one. Okay, cool. Otherwise, we have a few untriaged issues here that we haven't discussed before. So issue 102, supported entry types need to be context aware.
The gist of that is that, for example, the navigation entry type should not be exposed for workers, for example.
Okay. That doesn't seem contentious, unless...
No, I think, Nicholas, didn't you already fix a lot of the stuff in Chromium?
For supported entry types, yes.
Yeah, to be context aware. Right.
Yes. I guess we need to just improve the spec so that it's evident that it should be context aware.
So is that...
That's not really navigation timing issue, I would say.
Yeah, because it's a performance timeline issue that you need to... So what's context aware here? The registration or like the...
Yeah, so for example, if worker does not support long tasks, the worker performance will not have long tasks or paint in its supported entry types.
So from a navigation timing perspective, it should register to main contact supported entry types, but not to worker entry types, and we need to have two different registrations. Is that
right? I'm not sure how to word it in the spec.
yeah?
But yeah, the point is, I think it's more of a performance timeline issue. It might require a slight modification in navigation timing as well to say worker does not support it, but mostly performance timeline.
Yeah, we need the infrastructure in performance timeline, and then we will need to do some small changes in navigation timing. So should those small changes block level 2? I guess is the next question.
I would say no. These are just like little bugs.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. So I'm marking that as level 3. Does that seem fair? Okay.
So it's a pretty minor shift. This is for navigation timing. And is the pushback on just that it's a minor bug, so we don't care about it?
So I don't know if it's a pushback. It's just that it's basically a performance timeline issue that we need to resolve. So I don't think anyone is pushing back against fixing that for level 2. It's just that in terms of like, should it be a blocker or not? That's the question. And
yeah, and I guess my pushback on pushing it to level 3 is it as the spec is written, the tests to clarify what the spec says would in the worker have to ensure that the entry type would exist. So the spec is effectively functionally incorrect.
yeah.
Yeah, and so the navigation timing spec could be updated to ship with a very small amount of pros.
Just so, not to contradict what you're saying, but how is navigation preload exposed in service workers? Like, shouldn't it be? I mean, service workers do see the navigation. Are we currently not? Yeah. It's exposed as a resource rather than a navigation in service workers today?
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Well, if we really want to make sure that it's not technically incorrect, you can monkey patch it for now. Or, yeah, I don't think it makes sense to wait for the full performance timeline work to be done so that we can ship navigation timing, to be honest, but I don't know.
I think we can maybe mark it for level 2 for now. And if this is the last issue we have on our plate, we can discuss bumping it. Does that make sense?
Or monkey patching. Both are.
Or monkey patch it, yeah.
And like. So yeah, I think that's just in terms of how we proceed, a better policy. I understand the difficulties it causes.
Okay. Cool. So I'm marking it as level 2 and adding a comment, basically saying that that we discussed it. Yeah, I'll do that later. But yeah, basically we can mark it as level 2 and if it will be a blocker, we can reconsider or figure out a way to monkey patch. Okay. Next one on the list is issue 100. Worker start should be clearly defined as applicable to the last service workers. So this is a leftover from the resource timing issue. It was opened initially on resource timing, but it wasn't really applicable there. But it is applicable here. There could be, in a navigation, there could be scenarios where multiple service workers are involved, and we need to clarify that it's the last one, which, like the startup time of the last one is the one that's reflected in worker start. So, yeah, in terms of clarifications, I'm not I think we can easily hand wave those like basically discuss that in a hand wavy way, and then probably define it in a tighter way once we rebase everything off of fetch. But it would still, like, defining it in a hand wavy way would be still a spec change, so this would still, like, I tend to mark this as a level 2 issue. Does that make sense? Yeah. I hear no objections, so okay, cool. Next up, worker start should be gated on a timing allow check. Yeah, I think this is, yeah, definitely a level 2 issue that we need to block on, and otherwise the other 2 issues is, should navigation entry navigation type be updated according to the parent page? This is one that I'm struggling with a bit, as the definitions.
What issue number is this?
Oh, issue number 85. Sorry.
Thank you.
So the definitions for everything here exist as part of fetch and HTML, but I'm not sure that we can define tighter processing before the fetch integration. And I'm not sure what currently happens in HTML. Like, what's the navigation type of an iframe that, like, does it inherit from the top level frame or not, or from its parent frame? I'm not 100% sure. Like, what's the processing doing in HTML? I think we should align with that, but I'm not sure at the moment what that is, and if we can easily align with it without rebasing everything based on fetch. Does that make sense?
Are you hinting that this is an L3?
I think so, yeah. From my perspective, it would be definitely easier to push that to L3 because it would require a lot of HTML and fetch related wiring. Any strong objections?
I think that this issue is likely a match across multiple browsers, and therefore can wait till L3 for us to create enough tests, come to consensus, and fully specify it.
Anyone else? Okay. So L3 it is. And the last issue on the list is issue number 83. Should unloaded iframe be included in their parent document's unload duration? Yeah, and it seems like we discussed it almost a year ago. Unclear if this is a blocker. We'll determine once we see test results. I don't think we have actually written those tests and run them. So yeah. It's probably, yeah, I think the right path here would be to write the tests, run them, not necessarily land them, but run them, see if there's some sort of an agreement here, and then take it from there, based on what we said last year.
Yeah, and I agree. This is a less significant issue than the previous issue, in my mind. If we're willing to L3 the previous issue, this one should definitely be.
Okay. I'm happy to punt it to L3. L3 it is. Okay, so that covers the issues we wanted to discuss for navigation timing. I think that yeah, we can, with some push, reach a clean slate on the issues here. If we look at wpt.fyi here for user timing, for navigation timing, sorry. There's a lot of there's a lot of red on the Safari side of things. I'm guessing because of lack of performance observer support, and some a little bit of red and yellow tests on the Firefox side. So Marcus, do you think that this would be also be something you'd be able to prioritize and take a look at?
We'll see how it works out. Yeah, but for me, all the WebPerf working group specs kind of fall into the same bucket. So
okay,
we'll get there one by one, I think.
Okay, cool. That's great. For what it's worth, yeah, it seems like things are cleaner on the navigation timing side. Yeah. Okay, cool. And finally, performance timeline L2 republishing. Nicholas, you wanna?
Yeah, so I believe, if I understand correctly, it's a republish. So looking at the issues outstanding, there were two L2 issues. One is for tests to be clean. The other is for the buffered flag, which I believe we agreed would not be included in L2. Is that correct?
That was my understanding based on previous calls. Yeah.
So what is not included in L2?
The buffered flag for performance observer. So I guess the question, well, first looking at the WPT.FYI, there are some failures. Ideal harness, I think, have to be ignored because they include changes from user timing. But then there's also PO observe failures and
I just thought that has to do with the buffered flag, so that'll go away.
Right, so do you mean like all of them, or which tests specifically?
PO-observe, which is the red and chrome, that'll go away.
Yes. However, there are also other PO observed. There's like PO observed type, and it has window and worker tests. So I'm not sure what the problem there is. That's
Nicholas, quick question. For the buffered flag removal, it sounds like there's consensus of that. Are you driving that change? Are you going to remove it?
Well, that was my question, because I mean, I could do it. I just need some help because I don't know how the republishing is done. Presumably you need a new branch, and then you'll need to point it to a certain commit and potentially even revert some of the previous commits because the buffered flag landed a long time ago. So I guess the question is, which should be the commit we pinned L2 to?
I believe we should already have an L2 branch, right? Do we not? No, we don't. Oh wait, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong repo. One second.
But we don't have level branches on performance timeline for some reason. That is odd.
So we've not published level 3, right?
No, we
We've
have
not.
no.
So I think we can just update master and republish from that. And create a tag for it. Would that work?
I don't see the master branch.
It's just GH pages would be
GH
master
pages.
here.
Right.
Oh, but we can't change GH pages, right? It will remove all of the work that has done. Right.
So we can branch out L3 based off of what we have today, and then either create an L2 and do those changes there, or just do them directly on GH pages, but have the L3 branch, which is where we are now.
Yeah, effectively, if you copy GH pages to a new branch, it now has the entire graph, and then we can move the GH pages pointer back in history to the point we want it to be, and make any last edits to it, and that then have it republished.
So is that usually how it's done though? Because then wouldn't you not be able to access the latest version in GitHub pages?
Yeah, I think we actually want the reverse. So we
Yeah.
typically keep GH pages as the latest, which is what you see when you access the GitHub IO.
And make a new branch for L2
Right.
back from a commit in history, and then, yeah.
So you can just take the current GH pages, create a branch of it. You can even just revert it or force push, whichever you prefer, if you like rewriting history. And we can publish basically the L2 branch then.
Sounds good. So I guess my question is, can we agree on more or less what the commit should be for L2?
You mean at which point in time?
Yes. So there's, for example, there's several additions even after buffer flag, sorry.
So wouldn't it make sense to just take what we have now and manually revert some of the pieces, or is that too much work?
So I guess the question is precisely what do we want to remove? Is it the buffered flag plus the entry type specific parameters? Is there anything else we want to remove from that?
So the entry type specific parameters, my understanding was that we are holding off L2 for those. But
Wait, do
maybe
you mean you want L2 to include them or to
Yes.
exclude
Yeah.
them?
Yeah.
Because they have to include the entry type, because that's how the only way to correctly write a site that will not break. And so we chose to keep them included. The reason we forced them into L2 was if someone's going to snap from 1 to 2, they have to fully implement 2, or they start creating a scenario in which websites can accidentally break in certain browsers.
Oh, I see.
So I think all the latest, like everything you've been adding to Performance Timeline recently should still be in Performance Timeline L2. We just
so it's
want
just
to
a matter
remove
of
the buffered
manually
flag
removing
manually.
the buffered flag.
I think so,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine by me. But then, in that case, there are some tests that won't be passing in all, because those I think that change has not been done in Safari and Firefox. By that change, I mean the entry type specific parameters. That involves basically just adding the dictionary. It's a very easy change, so we can wait for another implementation to do it, but then we don't have the necessary test passing things to publish.
The simple things to do, Nicholas, would be just to quickly note which tests and how many are expected to pass if everything passes except the buffered flag. And from that, I think we can reason through.
Yeah.
So PO observe type, that's precisely testing that.
Sure.
And it only passes in Chrome, so that's the one I'm thinking
And so
about.
if you could simply, someone, if you're going to own pushing this, if you can own making the L2 branch, and then also own here's the test status for the browsers that, for one, here's the test that should pass if buffer flag isn't there. I think those two pieces of data are all we need to then say, well, Chrome's green. Now, what's the status of the other browsers, which then sets us up to take the spec to the next level of publishing. Is that clear?
Yeah, that sounds good. So I'll just, after I do that, comment on the GitHub issue about test screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or yeah. We don't have a publish to CR issue here. That would be the natural place. I can open such an issue, and then you can comment there with a list of the passing or non, like the tests that are not passing more than one implementation. Okay? Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks, Nicholas. Appreciate you stepping up on this one.
Sure.
Okay, and we seem to have gone through the list of issues we had for today. So anything else anyone wants to discuss, or should we call it early?
I have a question. I think we have a good path for performance timeline. Just to come back to navigation timing.
Yeah.
There is, I guess, 4 issues that are tagged as level 2.
Yeah.
Do we have folks assigned to them? What's the next step there?
I think the next step there is, yeah, I can take that on.
Okay, so right now 3 of them are tagged as discussed.
Yeah, it's just for the purpose of discussing them today.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
You want me to take a shot at the context aware ones? So that's, perf timeline,
If
navigation timing, and friends.
Nicholas, do you have a design in mind, or?
No, I don't have a design in mind. So if you want to do it, then I'll be happy to be a reviewer.
Okay, so I heard, I guess, Job and Charles, you guys will take a look at the outstanding issues.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Hey,
Thanks, guys.
and Philippe just joined. Hey, Philippe.
So he's going to take issue 199 then, right?
Yeah.
Well.
Okay.
right.
Okay, so thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.
See you next week. Cheers.
Bye.